All right, guys, Murphy Firearms Training here. Someone asked me a question the other night as a personal friend of ours, and we spent a long time talking about it. Actually went out in the parking lot and played with our handguns. And I thought it'd be a great idea to do a video of it. So there are two ways you can load your handgun, and if you carry a semi-automatic pistol. And they both have their pros and cons, if you will, okay? And so I want to talk about the pro and the con of each method. So I'm going to start with the most commonly taught method. And so I'm going to get a close-up of this 9mm here. And I do have live ammo, so I'm going to actually load this gun. And my wonderful camera woman's going to move so that I'm not pointing a gun at her. So the most common method for loading a handgun is to take a fully loaded magazine, put it in the gun, and drop the slide. Okay. Now, and I'm a stickler for this, your gun needs to be pointing in a safe direction when you do this. Okay. So we're going to drop that slide. Now, some folks, they stick it in the holster and they're good to go. Some folks will actually take that magazine back out and top it off. Okay. So they'll top it off and they'll put that magazine in, and now their gun is carry ready. Okay. It is fully loaded. This gun will hold 7 in the mag, 1 in the chamber. It is loaded with 8 rounds of 9mm. Good to go, right? Cool. That's one method. I'm going to set that up front, and I'm going to show you the other method, okay? So this is my wife's LC9. This is my Shield in 45. So here's my wonderful 45 ammo. So the other method is take a loose round, the one that you would top it off with, and drop it in the chamber, right? So drop that in there, and then drop the slide over that loaded round, and then insert the magazine, and you are fully loaded, right? This gun holds 7 plus 1, 8 rounds, okay? So those are your two methods. Now I want to go ahead and unload these and talk about the pros and the cons, okay? So I'm going to start with the LC9, the 9mm. So we loaded this gun by putting a loaded magazine in the gun and chambering it. And every time you do that, the end of your bullet here is hitting, and I don't know if you're going to see in there with this light, but the feed ramp. You're hitting that feed ramp that leads up into the barrel, okay? So you see your feed ramp down in there. The end of that bullet is hitting that feed ramp every time. And you get this wonderful phenomenon called bullet setback. What happens is this bullet will get a little shorter and a little shorter and a little shorter. And if you seat this too deeply into the case, it actually causes an overpressure situation, and this round can be dangerous, okay? Now, one of the ways that people kind of mitigate that, and if you want to come back around front, you can. One of the ways that folks mitigate that issue is that they rotate their carry ammo out. But the question is, I've seen people load their gun 5 times, and on the 5th time, that bullet was pressed back enough that they could notice it. It was very noticeable, okay? And to be honest with you, if you look at a round and you say, wow, that looks short, you don't want to fire it because you could have an overpressure situation. If you ever get into reloading, there's a maximum overall length that it'll chamber, but there's also a minimum overall length to avoid high pressure situations. And it's a pretty small window, okay? So that's kind of my dislike of that method, okay? Now, over to the other side. The other method is to take a live cartridge, drop it in your chamber. Now, because I'm dropping this into my chamber, it's not getting shoved over that feed lip, and so that bullet is not getting pressed back into the case every time. So that method will stop bullet setback. However, come in close to the gun here, you got this wonderful big old claw called your extractor, right? This big claw, I'm going to turn it up, that sticks into, really almost into your breech face here. That claw grabs the rim of the cartridge like so, okay? Grabs the rim of the cartridge. When you drop that cartridge in the chamber, that claw, and there's a spring in there, and let me see if you can see that. Can you see that springing? Okay. That has to spring over the rim of the cartridge. And I just want to show you, I don't know if it'll focus on that cartridge or not. Do you see that flat spot there? There's a little flat spot on the rim right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay, roll it around. See that flat spot shining in the light there? There's a shiny spot. Okay, that flat spot, matter of fact, there's a couple of them, is for me running that extractor over that rim. If you do that too many times, number one, you're going to create a bad spot on this rim. It might not extract. And number two, you could break the extractor of your gun or the extractor spring of your gun. So they have their pros and their cons. You have to decide. My one other dislike of putting a magazine in, chambering around, taking a magazine out, putting around in the magazine, putting the it's more gun handling. And the more you handle a loaded gun, the more likely you are to have a negligent discharge. And that's my opinion. But statistically, the more you handle a loaded gun, the more likely you are to have negligent discharge. Okay? I can't talk tonight. So which way is the correct way? Well, that's like asking which way is the best way to clean a gun. You ask 100 people, you'll probably get 50 to 100 different answers. It's really a personal opinion. Okay? Some folks really don't want their extractor jumping that rim. They really don't want damage to the rim of that cartridge. Okay, here's my thought as someone who's reloaded for 20 years. A damaged rim, the first round will go bang, and if the cartridge doesn't extract, oh well, but at least I didn't blow my gun up. A bullet that has set back into the case too far can actually develop enough pressure to blow your gun up. Okay, so that's kind of my thinking, is that the way I like to do it is to drop the cartridge into the chamber, drop the slide, stick the magazine in the gun, and go. It's less gun handling, and I'm not going to develop an overpressure situation. Now, do I keep an eye on the rim of my cartridges? Yes, I do. Do I keep an eye on the extractor of my gun every time I clean it? Yes, I do. Why? Because I know those are disadvantages of the way I like to load my gun. Okay? If you stick a magazine in and chamber around and then pull it out and stick a round back, and you're constantly rotating those top two rounds and running them into the chamber, you really need to pay attention to bullet setback. So what I want to do, I'm just going to take the top three cartridges out here and see if there's a height difference. So go in there and see if there's a height difference. You see a height difference? What do you think? No? Okay. So pretty much those are the same height. If you keep an eye on that, and that's the way you load your handgun, you'll be okay. But just pay attention, because you might notice that first cartridge there is starting to get short. If you notice it's starting to get short, don't keep loading it, because the more you do that, the shorter it's going to get. It's going to compress your powder charge, and all kinds of crazy things can happen when you compress a powder charge that's not made to be compressed. So anyway, those are kind of your two options. I will tell you, I'm not a person that unloads my gun every night. I have a handgun safe on my nightstand, and so I load my gun. I keep that gun loaded unless I have a reason to unload it. So I'm not doing this every day, but there are people that load and unload their handguns every day. And if you're one of those people, because you don't have a safe place to store your gun, and you've got kids in your house, you've got some reason that you don't want a gun loaded at night or whatever, it is something to pay attention to, and you really need to think about rotating your ammo out so that you don't damage your cartridge to the point where either A, it won't function in a self-defense situation, or B, it damages your firearm. So I hope that helps. If you have comments, leave them below. Like and subscribe. We do appreciate your support.